and welcome to KPC Underground. Aaron here, and I'm over here. If you can't see me, if you're actually watching on video, we are doing things a little bit differently today, and we're really excited to have our friend Peter Donovan here, who
Hello.
is a songwriter and musician, and one of Ailisa's good friends. Ailisa seems to kind of know everybody in this town. She's got a lot of friends, and Ailisa's actually going to be kind of going back and forth and interviewing Peter today and talking about music, and we're going to actually even have some performances, and yeah, just changing it up here today. And we're very excited to have you. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm going to let Ailisa just kind of take it away from here.
Sure, yeah. Talking about your songwriting, if you want to just give us like a little history of you and your musical journey.
Okay. Well, growing up, my mom raised me on musicals, show tunes. I did a lot of like community theater and stuff like that. So I was always like kind of singing at a young age, but it was kind of more in that realm. And I was a young person, and I used to go to the library, and I would just check out every musical I could get because I just like couldn't get enough of them. And somebody had filed the Who's Tommy, the actual Who record, in with the musicals, and I just grabbed it and checked it out. And I just remember taking it home, and it was like very confusing to me because I didn't really understand like what was going on or how this was a musical. It seemed like everyone was sung by the same person. And anyway, long story short, that kind of like transitioned me more into like rock and roll and things like that. So I feel like my background is kind of like a half of the musical realm and then half of kind of the rock realm, which I feel like probably influences my writing in one way or another. And then I started playing guitar in high school. A friend of mine kind of showed me some chords, and pretty much immediately I wanted to write. So, once I knew like 4 chords, I was trying to write my own songs, which at the time were terrible, but songwriting was always kind of just the lane I found myself going towards from the beginning.
That's kind of a fun idea, like going back to your original, like one of your first songs. I was talking to a group of friends yesterday, and we thought, what if you did a concert where you did like your first song you ever wrote, and then like some of the songs now, and how like scary and vulnerable and like ridiculous that would be. But to see, I think some of the beginning songwriters would love to hear like what you wrote, like what I wrote in middle school. I can still play the first song I wrote in 6th grade, Mm-hmm. So do you, when you approach your songwriting, is one part easier than the other, as far as the melody, the guitar, what kind of sparks the song for you?
I think initially it was always the lyrics for me, and a lot of that was just because, like I said, I just kind of jumped right in, and I didn't really have a lot of like musical know-how to fall back on. It was kind of just G chord, C chord, D chord kind of thing. So I think for me to keep the songs interesting, I felt like the lyrics were kind of the place where I could, make it more of my own. And, I think lyrics too are a little easier in general. Not easier, but like you can write lyrics without any kind of training, or you know what I mean, like you need to know how to play a guitar or play an instrument, but anyone could really just sit down and write lyrics out. They may not be very good, but you can still do it. So that was kind of always like my initial focus. And I definitely think as I've gotten older, like I've tried to focus more on the music as well, and I've gotten better as a musician, which helps. So now I think typically my songs will start with the music. It'll be kind of just like some noodling on the guitar or something like that, some chord progression that kind of comes to me, and I'll kind of start from there.
Nice. Yeah, I've noticed that people have very like clear, I don't know what you do, Aaron, but like lyrics come easy to me. I can just write that. Or for me, lyrics are scary and everything I write feels dumb and cheesy. But the melody comes easy to me, mm-hmm. So having that, the fact that you're crossing from the lyrics was easy and now you kind of do melody is interesting.
I feel like my goal now recently is to find like the perfect song for me is like when the lyrics are really good, but then they also sound good in the melody. Mm. So a lot of times I'll start kind of just like improvising a melody with words that oftentimes are just nonsense. But sometimes I'll find little like consonant sounds or vowel sounds, and it'll be like, oh, that O sounds really good in that melody. And then if I find something like that I like, then I can go back. And then the songs that I'm really the most proud of are the ones where it's like I can plug in words that are really great that also sound good in my melody, you know?
That's so interesting. I've heard that from so many people, and I resonate with that too, and I'm sure you probably do too. The nonsense lyrics thing. And I think someone starting out, that might be a surprise to them that so many people do that. But it's literally like, you're just singing nothing
Totally.
over until like you said, that O sounds good. Ooh, I want an O word there.
Right.
Just because, I don't know, there's something about it. But that's interesting, yeah.
That might be a good exercise too, to
yeah,
go through and like play a melody and then do nonsense syllables.
Like it can't. That's the requirement. Is it has to be has to be nonsense. It can't be actual words.
Yeah.
I was listening to an interview with Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, and he was talking about that a lot of times he'll do something similar, and he gets like in front of his mirror, and he's like pretending like he's rocking out, and it's just like nonsense is coming out of his mouth, but like little sounds stick, and then you can kind of go from there, and it is kind of nice, at least for me, to not dive in necessarily with like a specific topic or goal in mind. Like you mentioned, a lot of people talk about like lyrics are hard to write because it comes out sounding cheesy or something. And I found in my experiences, like if I sit down and it's like I want to write a song specifically about this thing, and I'm thinking about it really hard and focusing on it, then the lyrics start to feel a little forced and a little cheesy. And with the sort of free flowing approach, sometime a line will come out and I'll be like, oh, that line is cool. And I'll be like, I guess this is what that song's about now, and then you can build it around that. So that's helped me to kind of stay away from feeling like my lyrics are a little too, I don't know, cheesy or thought out. Is approaching songs with not necessarily like a goal in mind, which I know is quite different because I know songwriting for a lot of people is like almost therapeutic, and they'll have a life experience and they'll be like, I'm sitting down and I'm emoting immediately about that life experience, and so many amazing songs are written that way too, but that's just not really how I've been operating.
Sometimes what I'll do with the students is give them prompts. So I'll go to Goodwill and get a box of like random crap, and they have to just pull something out and then start writing a verse about whatever this little figurine is or something. So having those prompts could maybe be a middle ground for what you're talking about, because it's not necessarily like I'm going to write about my journey, or something vague, or I, had this traumatic experience, but it takes it out. And I get that inspiration from the Bushwick Book Club, which does songwriting based on reading a book. So, and you've participated in that. So how is that a little different, because you do have a prompt or like a book that you're writing inspired?
I do love the Bushwick Book Club, by the way. It's one of my favorite things to participate in. Some of my favorite songs that I've written were actually written for that. I guess I kind of still go in with the same approach, because typically the books have a broad range of themes and sort of things that I can tackle onto. I've actually heard a couple other songwriters in interviews talk about a method they use where they'll just kind of like grab a book off the shelf and just open it up and read a line. And, it could be like The Great Gatsby, or it could be like a biology textbook or anything else. And similar to I think what you're describing, like using that as a prompt. So definitely for some of the Bushwick songs, there's been like, as I'm reading it, like little lines will pop out and I'll just be like, oh, that's interesting. Like I'll hold on to that. And then usually there's a line or two that is enough to kind of spark me in a certain direction.
Yeah.
I do like the idea, I was going to say, of just remaining open to that, though, of like, ooh, I really like this line in this place, but this isn't what I was originally writing this song about. But I think maybe it's just a sense that whatever your direction is, you're open to creativity kind of interrupting that and sort of taking over and going, ooh, but I was kind of going this way, but I'm getting pulled this way, and I don't want to resist that, because that's what I've also seen is like the resistance to it. No, this song isn't about that, so I'm going to throw away what maybe was a good idea,
Yeah.
But
yeah. And sometimes when you really have a strong feeling like, I don't like this, I don't like the book, I don't want like what someone's saying, and you're like, I need to say something about it, making a statement through your song. I have a question about imposter syndrome.
I'm an expert in that.
I hear this the most from my beginning songwriters to people that have like really are full-time, have made it, have many albums under their belt, and are still saying, as a songwriter, do I actually belong in this community? And I think as a performer, maybe you get there, so you're like, yes, I can do this performance, but the songwriting part of it is so close to your heart. What has been your experience with that? And I guess also maybe advice.
I mean, it's definitely something that I grapple with all the time, and friends I know. I mean, I think everybody probably. I mean, I would even imagine like Bob Dylan on his bad days would wake up and sort of feel a little like, be like, oh, I'm not as good as Paul McCartney, or I don't know, whoever else he's comparing himself to. I remember reading something about like early songwriting, and they were explaining this idea that like a lot of times people that want to write songs, they want to do it because they like music. So like they're inspired by music. So you hear a band that you really like or an album that you really like, and you think like, oh, this album is touching me in an exciting way and it's inspiring me to want to write something. And typically when you're starting out, you know, unless you're one of the lucky ones, you're not really that good. So as you're writing, you're kind of comparing yourself to these records that you love that are incredible. And it's, I think even from the beginning, I think jumping in there, you're like, it kind of just like exists, the imposter syndrome from the beginning, and never really goes away.
Are there any things you do in order to overcome that, or do you allow yourself to kind of walk away for a bit, or do you surround yourself with people who are like, no, you're good, you know, or whatever?
Yes, do that.
Because I definitely do that.
I text Aaron and say, Aaron, how?
No, yeah, I will.
Tell me I'm good today.
I will literally send a friend a song who I know is a fan of mine.
Yeah.
Who, you know, it's like your mom or something, or just they're just your cheerleaders. And I'm like, I need that. I need you to say I'm good. Like sometimes I just need that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I get that for sure from my bandmates and like people that I'm working on music with. Like that kind of feedback is always really positive. And I think having people around you that you respect, like their opinion, obviously is very important, very valuable. And then also just people that you can trust to be honest with you, because you know, there is a lot of kind of just like, you know, we all play shows and people come up to you afterwards, and there's a lot of just kind of like niceties that get thrown around, and so it is, you know, I think if you have those kind of people in your life that you really trust, where it's like they'll give you some hard notes if you need them, but when they tell you that you're on the right track or that you're doing something good, you really believe it, and you know, it's like that's what feels good to me. And that, you know, music. Another thing I love about music is just the collaboration. Like it's so impossible. I mean, you know, some people do, like the princes of the world can do what they do all by themselves. But, you know, for me, it's always about, and you were talking about part of the structure of, or the sort of like the steps of songwriting is like the recording or like the performance. And, you know, like I talked about, my musical ability is limited still. And so much of what I'm able to do, luckily, is like take my songs in these sort of rudimentary forms to other musicians and other bandmates that can then kind of flesh it out, and you know, guitar lines, bass lines, things that I could never do on my own that really like almost elevate the song to a new level, which is cool. So that helps with the imposter syndrome for sure. I feel like if you have some people around you that you can trust and you can turn to, like you said.
Well, and that's a good thing that you're saying about community and collaboration, because you can sit in your room and, you know, or take a class and write a song, and then it's you know. But then connecting with other musicians that add something on top of what you've done and have, you know, creative, you're doing, you know, you've done a bunch of different projects with different people. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about you as a solo career, but you with a band, you with like Kate now, and, you know, just these different projects that pop up and how they affect your writing? And
yeah, like I said, I've always been a fan of collaboration, and I feel like working with different people brings out different things in you. Like co-writing is a really magical experience. I don't know if you guys have. I meet people all the time. Some people are like, I can't do it, I hate it. Some people are like, I'll do it all day, all night. You know, I'll co-write with like 20 people in a room, whatever. But I really like it. You know, it's I think as the longer we do this, we kind of like we get kind of like our safe zones and our like, when I sit down with my acoustic, it's like my fingers just kind of naturally find certain chords, or my melodies are sort of, there's always like something I can fall back onto if I'm lost. Or so having another person who's like totally out of left field, it's like, oh, what if we went to this chord? It's like I would literally never think to do that, and then it kind of just like sparks you in a whole nother direction. So co-writing with other people is really fun. And then, like I said, with the different musicians, is just having different people that can kind of like fill in the blanks musically for me has been really valuable.
And would you say, like, for your band, you're like the band leader when you book shows and organize your life and whatnot?
Yeah, for sure. For my I'm just playing as a solo person, solo human now. So yeah, I'm definitely like the ringleader / graphic designer / social whatever. I mean, there's like 5,000 things you have to know how to do now just to play music. But yeah, that's not my favorite part of it. I'll be honest, which is why I'm intrigued by some of these classes. I feel like I could probably learn a lot.
Yeah. What's your favorite or ideal place to share your music? Or, either generally or specifically a location, a venue that you've been to that you love performing in, or the style of venue?
I think like if I'm playing with like a rock and roll band, I really like the Tractor or the Sunset and Ballard. Those are some of my favorite spots. Trying to think of some more like the Royal Room is a really good spot I found for like more stripped down, like listening room vibes, I guess. I mean,
the Tractor and the Sunset, for those of people who don't know, are kind of small-ish size, maybe 200 capacity venues down in Ballard. So it's kind of that small, medium-sized venue is sort of what you're talking about there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've never played like any place super big. I mean, I've done like some outdoor festivals and stuff, but nothing like I've never played like the Paramount or any of those types of places. But
how about open mics or places to try out a song?
I'm not a big open mic person. I'm actually like kind of terrified of performing, if we're being completely honest, just to like get the imposter syndrome out there in full force. Yeah. So yeah, open mics they don't really. I mean, I like going to them and I like enjoy it, the idea of it, and I think for a lot, like I have a lot of friends that like go to the Connor Byrne open mic every week, and it's like they're doing like cooler stuff than I am, and they're still doing the open mic thing, So I know for a lot of people it is like a very important cornerstone, but I just get really anxious, so I usually record a lot of demos, just like acoustic demos on my phone, and then like I think what you were describing, like I have a couple friends that I'll send them to, or bandmates, and just kind of put them out in the ether. And I mean, my poor wife has to listen to all of my songs too, so she's actually probably the first line of defense for me.
Do you have any questions that came up for you?
No, I mean, everybody's so different. You're talking about collaboration. I that's historically something that's been really hard for me. I think because I'm a little bit of a control guy, maybe for whatever reason. But with the right people, it can be just really magical. But that's what I found is I really need to find that person. It's like I trust you, kind of a thing, like where you have that really. They need to be really mutually like we're on each other's side here, and because it's more difficult for me to be, because I think you have to be vulnerable in order to do a collaboration in songwriting, because you're sharing something that's like unfinished, or you're coming up with something in the moment, and that by nature is just very vulnerable space, and going, what do you think of here's something I came up with, and the answer that might come back is like like,
you're like, devastation.
Your heart's like breaking in real time.
So that needs to be a person you're okay hearing that from, and the right kind of like relationship there. That's like, it's okay for us to be like, I don't like that as much as that other thing you did. I like that other thing, sort of a thing. And so I don't know. I find that that's really key, is like finding the relationships where that works.
Definitely, and I definitely agree with what you're talking about in terms of like the intimacy and the vulnerability. Like I think one of the awesome things about playing music is like you can't, like I have friendships with people that I don't think I would have if we weren't like musically connected, because I think of what you're talking about. But then it, like the flip side of it is it's like also completely terrifying and scary.
Yeah.
My approach when I'm collaborating is I kind of like just throw every idea, like nothing's precious. Like every idea anyone has, like throw it out there, and you know, don't be like as best as you can. Like let's not be offended if we just want to keep moving on. You know, just make it an environment where like every idea comes out, and then I find that if everyone's comfortable working in that way, that eventually the good ideas and the best ideas do kind of work their way to the top.
Well, and they could be best for this specific project, and those ideas could be good for something else.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and that, I mean that the number one thing I feel like, and you were talking about imposter syndrome, like the thing that I think I've learned over the years that's helped me the most is like songwriting is not a matter of like doing it right or wrong, and it's not even really a matter of what's good and what's bad, because it's just it's a matter of taste. Like, you know, you think about, you know, someone like Taylor Swift, who's insanely popular. Like, there's a lot of people that don't like her music.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means they don't like it. It's a taste thing, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're writing a song and somebody doesn't like it, it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's immediately bad or not worth holding on to. It just means that maybe it's not for them. And I see bands all the time where it's like, yeah, this music maybe isn't my style, but I can appreciate that, like, they're awesome at doing it. But I might not throw it on at home. But that doesn't mean that they're bad. You know what I mean? It's just so that's an important thing, I think, to remember, especially for like new people starting out, because I feel like we're talking about, like holding yourself up to the standard of like who you like. It's like, well, that's almost it is an impossible standard. Yeah. So just kind of like just remembering that, like, at the end of the day, a song is done when you decide it's done, and if you think it's good, then it's good, and it can just kind of exist.
Right.
Someone once told me that the same thing, where, you know, it's your taste and your preference, and they said if you're true to your own songwriting, you're not trying to be somebody else. You're not, you know, listening to this other artist and go, oh, I wish I was them. You're just putting yourself out there. Then your people will find you. The people that want to listen to you will find you.
I agree with that for sure, and yeah, I think your personality comes through that way, one way or another. Whether you're trying, like, what makes you uniquely you is gonna, like, we're talking about using prompts and things, and it's like, oh, maybe this is a song about that plant, but inevitably, like, some part of my subconscious and psyche will come through in that song.
Yeah.
Maybe in a huge way, maybe in just like a tiny little way, but you know, if the three of us sat down for 5 minutes and like, let's each write a song about this plant, they'd probably be three completely different songs.
Yeah.
And unique to each of our life experiences and all these sorts of things.
And I think part of songwriting is building in that, like, safe space for yourself to say, this is my, you know, this is my song. And yes, maybe people will judge it and they will not like it, or, you know, but it is totally based on who's listening. And I judged solo and ensemble for sopranos, which is very like this tiny, you know, they didn't write the songs, it was just their voices singing classically, and there were 3 judges, and of course we all 3 picked out of 60 some odd sopranos that day different winners.
Yeah.
You know, and all 3 of us that were qualified as judges, but, you know, how do you pick that, you know, what you thought was the best performance is different than the person next to you and next to you. So, like, building that in, I think, to, as you're starting as a songwriter, that this is, you know, owning your own place in the community is important, and having your people.
I feel like music is pretty unique as an art form because it's so, like, instantaneous. Like, I feel like if you watch a movie or you read a book or something where it's like, maybe you're like, oh, well, I didn't like that actor, but I thought the cinematography was cool, and I didn't like that scene, but I thought that was cool. And I feel like people consume music sort of, it just kind of washes over you, and you kind of immediately have a reaction to it. You either like it or you don't, which I think is a little tricky to navigate sometimes when you're trying to make it, you know, because like what you're talking about, like, people are going to have probably like an immediate reaction to it, positive or negative.
Yeah.
And just kind of being able to, like, navigate that.
All right, so you're going to sing a song for us today. And what I usually have my songwriters do as they actively listen, is think about your lyrics. Really listen. There are so many people that don't listen to lyrics at all. my husband included. He's like, I have no idea that's what that song was about. I'm like, yeah, that. So listening to the lyrics, is it a story? Is it, are you in the first person? Are you talking about someone else? Also listening for the accompaniment, the feel of it. Sometimes the songs you hear, why are they, a certain way? You have the trajectory of the song, it gets exciting, and then it kind of has, the breakdown, and then it comes back up, if you can feel that. And then also today you have your guitar and your voice, but we can listen for, do you hear drums coming in? Do you hear strings in there? Do you hear mandolin or, keyboards? Accordions, of course, always accordions. So we'll listen to your song and then we'll talk to you about it.
Sounds good.
Let's listen.
It's pretty hard to imagine me without you by my side. The thought'll make your head spin. I couldn't quit you if I tried. You've always been the one in all my dreams. We've been everything and everything in between. We've been good, we've been bad, we've been overrun and underdone. We've been happy, we've been sad. We've been wrong, we've been right. We've been long days and lonely nights. We've been city dreams and backwoods screens. We've been dim and we've been bright. But at the end of the day, we've always been alright. So we'll be okay. I know the waters are rough now. We've been at it like cats and dogs, but I think we both had enough now. So how about you just come home? You've always been the one in all my dreams. We've been everything and everything in between. We've been good, we've been bad, we've been all for one, we cut and run. We've been foolish and we've been mad. We've been wrong, we've been right. We've been day trips and fly-by nights. We've been mysteries, ancient history, loose-lipped and uptight. But at the end of the day, we've always been alright. So we'll be okay. You've always been the one in all my dreams. We've been everything. You were everything. We've been good, we've been bad, we've been overrun and underdone. We've been happy and we've been sad. We've been wrong, we've been right. We've been long days and lonely nights. We've been city dreams and backwoods screens. We've been dim and we've been bright. But at the end of the day, we've always been alright. So we'll be okay. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
That was a beautiful song. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, my first question would be, is that a true story about yourself?
I would say yes and no. There's another songwriting quote that I like that I'll paraphrase because it's been attributed to a couple different people, and I'm not actually sure who said it, but it's this idea that songwriting is some kind of combination of like imagination, experience, and observation. So if you have, any song could be some kind of like in that Venn diagram. My songs are typically autobiographical in a way, but they're not typically like exactly autobiographical, if that makes sense. So to answer your question, did you ask if it's a true story or if it's about me? Yeah, I would say yes and no. I think there's definitely like parts of like experiences that I've had that I've kind of held on to that I can kind of tap into when I need. And then I'm certainly not afraid to kind of stretch the truth a little bit in the interest of making something a little more exciting. And, I feel like finding a nice middle ground there is typically, I'm pretty excited when I can get there.
I really enjoyed the energy of the song and how it grew, and then you pulled back a little bit and then it grew, and again a voice that I enjoy listening to, resonant, and it's hard sometimes because we all have our own voice and we were given that voice, so finding a way to sing with that voice. I don't have Brandi Carlile's voice, unfortunately. I wish I did, but when you make your songs yours, they work with your voice, and the guitar melody that comes in the intro. Maybe talk a little bit about how you write your guitar parts.
That one was definitely like I was just kind of messing around on the guitar and just kind of those notes started to come out. I do a lot of just like sitting on the couch with like a basketball game on with my acoustic, just kind of noodling around. A lot of kind of like chord ideas will come from that.
One technical question, that song, you had a capo for those who couldn't see it, or maybe you could hear that you did. What makes you decide to use, something, because you could play it in a different voicing down lower or with no capo or whatever. What makes you kind of like, choose specific chord voicings? Is it just sort of like, this is where I was noodling around, this is where I like it, or is there kind of specifics behind that?
For me, it's always been just kind of the limitations I have as a guitar player. And like when I first started and I didn't really know that many chords, and I was like, well, if I put a capo on, like suddenly this G chord sounds different. Like I think I'm doing something differently. Yeah. So that's just kind of always just been part of my approach. But yeah, I certainly like the way it sounds sometimes capoed and a lot of times I do a lot of writing like first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times, like, my singing voice will be, like,
lower,
pretty low. And, I'll, like, write a song, and I'll be like, oh, I'm really excited about it. And then I'll, like, go to sing it, and I'll be like, this needs to be higher because it's far too low because I was half awake when I wrote it. So, yeah, I know. I find the capo to be a very useful tool. Yeah. Love my capo.
Yeah. Would you, if you were to, is this on an album?
I'm actually mixing my second record right now, and it is on there.
Sweet. So are there other instruments?
There are.
Which are?
We have drums, bass, electric guitar, synthesizers. My first record was a lot more kind of just like organic singer-songwriter, kind of band in a room approach. And for this one, we went for more of like a produced kind of like sort of like sonic soundscape, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like there's a lot of like ear candy and just kind of like weird stuff. And we tried to build the songs up from like a groove rather than the other way around. So this song in particular, kind of like the bass line's just like real grooving. It just kind of is like bump, 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 bump throughout, and the drums are just very like steady, and it just kind of like moseys along in that way.
I would imagine the drums are doing like a little shuffle kind of a thing. Is that sure.
So do you, as a songwriter, do you hear those things in your head when you're writing your song, or do you? I mean, you said we, so you're talking about your bandmates. Mm-hmm. Do you have a producer also?
Yeah, I've been working with a producer that worked on my first record and is working with me again, and actually played bass on this second record. And like you were talking about earlier, like he's one of those people that I just trust implicitly, and just, I mean,
Is somebody we know?
Bradley Lena from Vaudeville Etiquette, who's I actually was taking a picture of that poster when I was upstairs and sending it to him, because they're very good looking band on the wall there.
The co-lead singer or former, I guess they're no longer together, but yeah, we know Bradley.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's amazing, and he. I mean, I don't know how deep down like the producer rabbit hole you want to get, but like some producers are very technical.
Yep.
Some producers are technical and musical. Some are technical, musical, and also songwriters, performers, and Bradley's kind of all of the above, which is like a pretty exciting mix. So yeah.
And
cool. Hire Bradley.
Hire Bradley.
Hire Bradley.
And we'll have a whole range of people who have been songwriting forever, or people who are just, I'm doing a youth class too. So having people that maybe don't know what a producer is, you want to just give them. Aaron is also a producer,
nice.
So give them a little like rundown of what that even means.
Well, to answer your first question about like whether or not I think about these parts when I'm writing, personally for me, and a lot of this goes back to just kind of like my limitations musically, is like I like to just kind of leave all that space, as much space open for everyone else to kind of like do their thing. I was reading an interview with Quentin Tarantino, and he was talking about like when he makes a movie, so much of the biggest part of his job is just hiring the right people. And then once the right people are in the place, then you just kind of let them do their thing, and it's like, cast the right people, whatever. So like that's kind of how I approach it, where it's like if I have musicians that I trust, it's like I don't need to tell them what to do or what to play. It's like that's why they're here, So I try to keep my demos pretty just kind of bare bones. So to answer your question about the producer, so the producer kind of comes in and they're kind of like the big picture person. And in my case, Bradley has much more musical know-how than I do. So he kind of like, I guess like supervises the proceedings, and kind of, a lot of times if you're playing in the band, and certainly if you wrote the songs, it's kind of hard to step back from the tree and see the forest, so to speak. So I've personally find a producer is really helpful for that. And then also, the imposter syndrome conversation. Like, if I'm recording demos at home, like I would just do vocal take after vocal take after vocal take after vocal take, and I'm just never happy. And honestly, like they all are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So the producer for me is also really helpful to just be the person that's like, it's good.
Yeah.
Like what you got is good. Like let's move on. And that can be very helpful too.
And that's sometimes all it takes is for somebody you trust, because you maybe already know that sort of intrinsically, but you just need that external validation of someone you trust, the key thing.
Totally.
To go, no, that one was great. And then you're like, okay. And then you believe them, and then now you're there too. So, yeah.
And they're kind of like the first audience, I guess. Like you're talking about who you share your songs with, and it's like, it's almost like not a real song until somebody's heard it. So I think like having that producer, or even the bandmates or whatever, that can kind of be that first audience, and you play it, and then if they tell you they like it, it's like, cool. Yeah. It's in the world, and some people like it, so that's a good sign.
Well, I think it's really, really powerful what you said about keeping it simple and leaving space. I know as a pianist and having to play like orchestral reductions, I am constantly just filling up. It's like the people that can't handle silence in a conversation, they have to fill it up. But keeping it simple, it's good advice for a beginning songwriter. Like you, like own the space, own the rests, own, that moment, so that you're not like nervously trying to just fit a lot of stuff in there. And then when someone comes in or your friends come in, there's a spot for a lone cello, or
Yeah. One thing I have found writing this way is like I don't typically leave a lot of like musical breaks, because a lot of like if a song to me is like interesting when I'm just playing it by myself, and I can't really like solo or do anything. So like if I'm just strumming like where a solo would be, that's not I typically would like try to write something like words or do something else. So for me, like when we go in with the band, and a big thing that Bradley did, particularly on this new record, is like finding those spots where it's like, let's expand here. Now that we have a band, let's make a little guitar breakdown here, and and I think that's all part of just kind of being open to. I mean, a lot of this is like personality. Like you were saying, you like kind of like to be a little more in control of stuff, and some people are like that. But yeah, for me, it's always just been kind of like leave the spaces there and just kind of go in with an open mind and see what happens.
Well, and that could be like our next class, like songwriting, get your song, everything. And then the second step is get your band, or collaborate once you have your song ready and like start putting stuff on other people's things. And
can I ask a question about the class? Mm-hmm. So do most of the students want to sing the songs they write? Like, do you have any students that want to write for other vocalists?
Yes, there are students that do. I'd say 9 out of 10 want to sing their own song. But there's definitely some that are like, no, I want to write for somebody else. And sometimes they will write several songs, and 4 of their songs are a perfect fit for them, and 1 song is not. Like, they go through it, and they're like, I love this song, but I'm not the right fit. And I always tell them that they can write for a friend.
I've been working on a couple songs for a new Orlando Bloom movie. It's coming out later this year.
Cool.
And those were all very, like, specific assignments in terms of, like, style of song. So I didn't end up singing any of them. One's like an old-timey country song, so bring someone in for that and that kind of thing. And that's also really exciting to me because, like you mentioned earlier, like you can't sing like Brandi Carlile or whatever. So like, like when I work with Kate, like the way she can sing a melody or a song is like I could never do that. And it's like it's cool, and it's almost like another challenge to write for another vocalist. I was watching this documentary on Stephen Sondheim, who writes a lot of musicals and stuff, and he talks about this all the time because, like, he's not singing his own songs. So, like, he would know that so-and-so's the star of the show, and he would be thinking, like, oh, I know that, like, she needs to breathe a lot, or I know that she can do this really well. So then to be able to go in and write a song specific to somebody's vocal skills, I mean, that is, like, to me, is, like, some next level songwriting, because I think it's easy to write melodies that you're comfortable singing, but sometimes you have ideas that maybe wouldn't fit with your vocal range that somebody else could bring to life.
Also, if you talk about the career element of it, I mean, if you want a chance at like a career in terms of money, and whatever, definitely try to learn to write songs for other people, because as we all know, a lot more opportunities there to actually make some money than working on your own stuff some of the time. It's just a more difficult road to like actually make money. It's more of a passion project for most of us to like work on our own stuff. So a great skill set to be able to develop, to go, hey, I'm going to write a song and it's going to be this kind of song that could fit in this TV show or this movie or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Have you heard the songs that you wrote for that project?
Yeah, part of it was writing it and recording it. So yeah, Kate actually sang one, and Bradley actually sang one. He sang the country song. So that, again, like I said, like the collaboration aspect is always my favorite. So projects like that are always fun because it's like, oh, we need this type of vocalist. It's like, who do I know that could kind of like do this? Or we need this instrument. It's like, who do I know that can do this? Because like old-timey country, as much as I love it, that's not really the kind of music that I'm personally making, but I do really like that music, and those songs are fun to write, so it's always fun to tackle sort of like genre projects.
The Kate we're talking about, by the way, can you tell us the Kate?
Oh, Kate Dinsmore,
yeah,
who is a good friend of yours,
yes.
and is also a solo artist in her own, if you want to say a little bit about her.
I met Kate probably like 4 or 5 years ago now. And yeah, we just we hit it off both personally and artistically. I think we just kind of approach songwriting from a similar standpoint, and we're both very. Another thing we haven't really talked about is kind of like subject matter of songs. Like, for me, typically most of my songs are like kind of relationship based or like real life based, I guess, for like lack of a better word, just kind of like about people living their lives. And Kate writes a lot of the same kind of songs, so we kind of like we're in sync in that form. So yeah, she's been a really, really valuable collaborator, and we've been working on a lot of stuff together, which has been fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Go check out her music, everyone. Kate Dinsmore, and powerhouse like vocals and It's like
Huge
Elvis
voice.
meets like, who else is in there? Janis Joplin maybe or something. A little bit of that. It's just that powerhouse thing.
There's a little like Jeff Buckley in there.
A little Jeff Buckley in there. Yep.
Yeah.
And tell us where to find you and what your projects you're working on and what's coming up and all that.
My name's Peter Donovan. I'm just out there as Peter Donovan. PeterDonovanMusic.com. I'm on all the social sites. I have one record out that came out last year, and then we have another one that's probably going to come out later this year. So keep your eyes peeled.
And
Cool.
songs and film
Yeah,
and
This Orlando Bloom movie they're wrapping up post-production in June, so that'll hopefully be out soon also.
Is it Pirates of the Caribbean Part
No.
19?
I
No,
wish.
okay, yeah.
I wish.
We've got the exclusive scoop here today, ladies
Right.
and gentlemen. Yeah,
It's called Red Right Hand.
cool, great.
He plays like it's kind of like Appalachian John Wick is how I would elevator pitch it.
Yeah,
He plays this kind of like West Virginian farmer guy who gets drug into this underworld of drugs and
cool.
we'll have to do
Action.
a watch party.
We'll have to check that out for sure. Yeah.
Do we want to close with maybe another song?
sure.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
And you know what to do. Listen for all the things. Maybe this song will be a little different than the other one. And thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. And hopefully we'll get you in person live in a class and maybe at a workshop.
I would love that.
Yeah. Everybody out there, thanks for listening. We're going to leave you with this last song from my new friend, Peter. and yeah, thanks so much for being here with
Thanks
us.
for having me. That was really fun.
Thank you.
You told me not to call, but you still answered. You asked what I was doing. I said nothing new. I guess this is old news, and I'm sure that you've heard that I still miss you. And I'm wasted. I asked about your new friend. You said things were fine. But when you told me that you loved him, I could tell you were lying. I did all our old jokes, and I could tell you were smiling. I said I miss you. Well, I've been stumbling down the avenue, and I've been looking for you. I've been looking for my baby, but I'm wasted, and I miss you. You asked about my new songs, and I complained. Been writing every day, but they're all the same. Some $5 words and a cheap refrain that goes, I miss you. And I'm wasted. You asked if I was lonely. I said basically, but I'll never be alone. Not technically. The elephant in the room, yeah, he's with me, and I really miss you. Well, I've been stumbling down the avenue, and I've been looking for you. I've been looking for my baby. I figured it was over, and I'd never make it through. So I've been drinking, it's true. Now I'm thinking it could save me, but I'm wasted, and I miss you. You told me not to call. You said this is the last time we might recall. You said that the last time, in spite of it all, it's a hell of a pastime, and I still miss you. Well, I've been stumbling down the avenue, and I've been looking for you. I've been looking for my baby. I figured it was over, and I'd never make it through. So I've been drinking, it's true. Now I'm thinking it could save me, but I'm wasted, and I miss you.
Thanks for joining us for KPC Underground. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider supporting KPC at kpcenter.org/donate. Your generosity helps us keep this and other programs going at Kirkland Performance Center. Be sure to check out our website for the latest events coming up. And hey, we'd also love to hear from you. Please rate our podcast, like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. And if you have a specific question or an idea for a show, email us at podcast@kpcenter.org. Thanks for listening.